In Dead by Daylight, each killer has a set of 3 teachable perks, some of which synergize with their power, and others, not so much. Taking this into consideration, there must be perks that work much better on some killers than others. I'm J-Class Gamer, and in this new series we are going to explore each killer and their abilities, and what teachable perks work better for other killers. Each episode we will work through each killer and discuss how other killers' teachables can synergize better with their ability. First, a few disclaimers about this series, just to make sure there's no confusion anywhere down the line. The first being, as we discuss each perk, we are only thinking of that perk and that perk alone, and how that one perk by itself has direct or possibly indirect synergy with the killer's ability. The second being, just because we have put a perk on a killer's list does not mean that the perk is bad on its owner. There are some perks which are good on their owners but also coincide really well with another killer's ability. A quick example would be Thrilling Tremors, a Ghostface perk that works really well on the Oni and the Hillbilly but still synergizes well with the Ghostface's ability. The third being, the situations in which these perks are demonstrated are recreated in Kill Your Friends with some amazing helpers of mine, Dan, Thomas, Ben and Zach, because I do not yet have all perks on all killers. Fourth being, this series only includes the perks that belong to the 3 perks that each killer has at base. Unified perks such as Hex No One Escapes Death and Unrelenting will not be included in this series. And the final being, when we discuss the perk's ability, we will always discuss it based on the assumption the perk is at level 3. Now, with these disclaimers having been covered, let's jump right into it. In this first episode, our subject of discussion is the original killer, the Trapper. There was once a time where he had the sole responsibility of serving the entity. But times have changed since then, and the responsibility is shared over a large array of killers. And with each killer comes new perks. For those of you who are not too familiar with his ability, the Trapper is an area control killer. He has the ability to place bear traps all across the map to be able to hold down certain areas to bring chases to a quick end. The first perk on our list is Monitor and Abuse. This Doctor perk reduces your terror radius by 8 meters outside of a chase, and increases your terror radius by 8 meters when in a chase. Having this slightly reduced terror radius means that you are able to set up your traps in an area with a decreased chance of survivors hearing your terror radius, sneaking around after you leave, and undoing your setup. This perk also gives you an increased field of view when outside of a chase by 10 degrees, which will help you spot the auras of your traps and your prey easier. The next perk is the Huntress perk, Territorial Imperative. The Trapper has an incredible basement presence and has potential to be a huge threat to survivors when it comes to the basement, whether survivors are hooked in there or not. Using this perk, it's possible to trap a survivor down in the basement, or to hit them and lead them directly into a trap, which immediately allows you quick and easy progress on your objectives. Our next perk is Bamboozle, a perk belonging to the Clown, which allows the killer to vault a window 15% faster and to block that window for 16 seconds. This perk can be used by the Trapper to push survivors towards or into his traps. This can be used well in areas such as the Killer Shack to help cut chase times. Similar to the last perk, Cruel Limits is a Demogorgon perk which, upon a generator being fully repaired, all window and vault locations within a 24 meter radius are blocked for 30 seconds. This perk can also be used to encourage survivors towards your traps, especially if you weren't able to stop a generator from being repaired before you were close enough to push the survivors away. Possibly one of Trapper's best perks, the Plague perk, Corrupt Intervention. One of Trapper's crucial elements is his setup at the beginning of the match, as this setup can allow a much stronger mid-game offensive towards the survivors. The only problem is, whilst Trapper is doing his crucial setup, the survivors can be a map away from where you're setting up, and they can be repairing generators without a care in the world, and this can be quite harmful to you, and even has the potential to mean that no matter how well your mid-game offensive is, you will never be able to catch up fast enough to the survivors and their progress. Corrupt Intervention helps greatly in the setup phase by blocking the 3 furthest generators away from you for 120 seconds. This block time will allow you to set up your traps in the areas where generators are not blocked without the survivors repairing the generators far away from you. Next we have Zanshin Tactics, an only perk which highlights all vault locations and pallets within a 24 meter radius. This perk remains active until you injure a survivor, then has a cooldown of 30 seconds. This perk can be quite helpful in your setup at any time during the match, as it highlights all the ideal places for you to hide your traps in or around to help catch the survivors. Our final perk is Freddy's perk Remember Me, an obsession perk which gives a token every time you hit your obsession, and each token adds on 4 seconds to the opening time of the exit gates, up to an additional 16 seconds. The obsession is not affected by this perk, so ideally you want them dead to gain the most benefits from this perk. While this is more of an indirect synergy with Trapper's ability, the Trapper can place traps at each exit gate as an early warning system as to which gate the survivors are attempting to open. Using Remember Me can allow you to reach them at the exit gate with still plenty of time to gain some last minute progress, or even finish off the survivors and claim your victory. It takes 20 seconds to open an exit gate, and with 4 tokens of Remember Me it will take 36 seconds, which gives you a lot more time to claim some more survivors. There are 2 honourable mentions that we experimented with which I thought could have potential if they could have worked as we'd hoped. The first honourable mention is Fire Up, a Freddy perk which gives the killer a stackable 4% buff to picking up, dropping, pallet breaking, generator damaging, and vaulting for the remainder of the trial every time a generator is repaired. While it does not mention it in the perk's description, we wanted to test if the buffs gained from Fire Up would allow the Trapper to place his traps much faster. Unfortunately, they do not, as his trap placing speed remained normal even with 5 stacks of Fire Up, which works out to be a 20% buff. The second honourable mention is the Leatherface perk Knockout, a perk which stops survivors seeing the aura of downed survivors outside of a 16-meter range. With this perk effect in mind, we wondered if this perk would prevent survivors from seeing the aura of trapped survivors if a survivor was to step in a bear trap. Similar to the last perk, Knockout had no effect on the ability to see the trapped survivor's aura. After experimenting with this, we came to the conclusion that making a change to Knockout to allow this to happen has potential to make Knockout a much more viable perk for the Trapper. Although, we also discussed the idea of this effect possibly being a rare add-on for the traps. After having reached the end of the list, it's interesting to see how many perks that were made well after the Trapper's release actually have potential to synergize with his ability. Have I missed out any? Do you have any ideas of other teachable perks which could have potential to coincide with the Trapper's ability? Let me know in the comment section down below and I will revisit good suggestions in a future video. Thank you guys very much for watching and stay tuned for more of these videos. Our next killer will be the Wraith.